One day my dad had came home from work and he seen me and my sister still playing outside in our pajamas. We were playing in the mud and we had our empty juice boxes and other trash thrown everywhere in the yard. The front door was wide open and there was no sign of our dog anywhere. My dad walked in the house and he found an even bigger mess. There was a broken lamp on the floor and juice stains all over the carpet. The TV was still on in the living room and it was loud, very loud. Our favorite cartoon channel was on. He walked further into the living room and he found toys everywhere. Our clothes was also thrown all over the living room. When he walked into the kitchen, he seen that the dishes weren't done. Breakfast food was still spilled all over the counter and the refrigerator door was wide open. The dog's food was spilled all over the floor and there was broken glass under the table. He quickly headed upstairs, stepping over piles of toys and clothes. Looking for my mom, he was worried that she might be sick or something, cause how could she let the house get like that? When he made it into the hallway, he found water on the floor. It turns out that our bathroom tub was overfilled. When he looked inside the bathroom, he found wet towels all over the bathroom floor, and toilet paper was soaked inside the toilet. As he made it to the bedroom, he found my mom still laying in bed in her pajamas. She was reading a book. When she looked up, she seen my dad standing at the door and she smiled at him. She asked him how his day was. He looked at her and he was so angry. He said, "What happened here today?" My mom was still smiling at him. She said, "You know, every day when you come home from work and you ask me what in the world do I do all day?" He said, "Yes, but what does that have to do with anything?" She said, "Well, today I didn't do it." Ever since I was a child, I always had this fear of someone being under my bed at night. So I started to go see a psychiatrist. I told him every time I go to sleep at night, I think somebody is under my bed. I'm really scared and I think I'm going crazy. The psychiatrist told me that I should start coming to see him 3 times a week for at least 1 year. He said we should be able to get rid of those fears. I asked him how much he charged and he said $80 per visit. I told him that I'll think about it and then I walked out his office. It's been 7 months since I seen the psychiatrist, but I bumped into him at the grocery store. He asked me why I didn't come see him about the fears that I was having. I said, well, if I came to you 3 times a week and it costs $80 a visit, that comes up to $12,480 a year. And I'm sorry, sir, but that is a lot of money. I told him that a drunk man that I met at a bar one night cured me for just $10, and that was a lot of money that I saved. The psychiatrist seemed a little bit upset. He asked me how did a drunk man at a bar cure me. I said he told me to cut the legs off my bed. Ain't nobody under there now. I remember when I was a little girl and I had this dog named Mercy. And she was basically my best friend since I really didn't have any friends. But anyways, one day I asked my mom could I take Mercy out for a walk. I just wanted to walk her around the block. But my mom told me no because Mercy was in heat. And at the time I didn't know what that meant. But anyway, she told me to go and ask my father could I walk Mercy. When I was looking for my father, I finally found him in the garage working on his car. So I went out to the garage and I asked my dad could I take Mercy out for a walk around the block. Then I told him that I asked mom, but she told me that the dog was in heat, so I should come and ask you. And for some reason, he took a rag and he soaked it in gasoline. And then he started scrubbing Mercy's backside with the rag. I was confused and kind of upset, so I asked him why did he do that. He told me it was to disguise the scent she had. And then after that, he told me that I could go ahead and walk Mercy. But he made me promise that I would keep Mercy on the leash and I would only walk around the block 1 time. So I promised him and then I left. And 30 minutes later, I came back with no dog and no leash. And my dad sounded real angry when he asked me where Mercy was. I turned my head so I wouldn't have to look at him in his face. Then I said she ran out of gas about halfway around the block. That's when I turned to look at him and then I said, so another dog is pushing her home. So the other night I went to my best friend's house to celebrate her getting married. She had threw a big dinner party and all of her friends and family were there. Anyways, after dinner, people started leaving, but I stayed behind to help her clean up. After a while, I realized it was getting late, so I gave my best friend a hug goodbye and then I got into my car to leave. But for some reason, my car wouldn't start, and since it was so late, I had no choice but to stay the night with my best friend and her husband. I lived like an hour away and I just couldn't make that drive. So I was was just glad that my best friend and her husband didn't mind me staying the night. But the only problem was they had just moved into their house, so it wasn't fully furnished yet. They had no sofas or mattresses for me to sleep on, and they only had one bedroom. So I was forced to sleep in the same bed with my best friend and her husband. So in the middle of the night when everybody is asleep, my best friend's husband taps on me and then he starts whispering. He told me to climb over so we could have some fun. I whispered back and I told him that I couldn't do that because she was my best friend, and what if she wakes up anyways? He told me not to worry about her because she's a deep sleeper. Then he said I could pull a hair off her back and she wouldn't wake up. So I tested his theory and then I pulled a hair off my best friend's back. And sure enough, she didn't even budge. So I decided to climb over and make love to her husband. And after we were done, I climbed back over to my side of the bed. And like 30 minutes later, my best friend's husband told me to climb back over to his side again. But before I did that, I pulled a hair off my best friend's back just to check and make sure she's still sleeping. And this went on several times throughout the night. But on the ninth time, when I pulled a hair from my best friend's back, she woke up. She stared at me for a minute and she looked really angry. Then she said, "I don't mind you making love to my husband, but can you please stop using my back as a scoreboard?"